Hi guys, and welcome to my latest video. As always, I've been neglecting the main channel again, but unlike always, I'm going to do something about it today. I've been watching a lot of Larry Graves, who is a YouTuber who I very much like. I'm going to link both of his channels in the description because his videos have just completely inspired. I've stolen this video basically from him, although he hasn't done exactly what I'm doing today, but he does these tier list ranking videos for albums. I've been watching a lot of them. I like them. I want to do one, and people on the internet seem to like watching tier list videos. I doubt they're going to watch this one, because they don't seem to watch my videos at all, but that's perfectly okay. I do this for me. What I'm going to be doing today, as it says in the title, is ranking every single Beatles and solo Beatles album that I've heard. I haven't even heard all of the Beatles albums, let alone all of the solo Beatles albums. And there's no Ringo on here because I haven't heard any of his stuff. However, there are live albums and one compilation album here as well, because it is every album that I've heard by them. So I'm just going to do them in the order that they're laid out here. They are not in any order that has any kind of sense to them. So I'm just gonna see how it goes. And also, I should tell you, I like the Beatles a lot. There are 43 albums here. I'm expecting at least 20 of them to be in S tier. I like the Beatles that much. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Starting with good old George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, instant S tier, and as you can see, I have this and the Apple Jam part as separate albums because I consider them to be separate albums. They're on my phone as separate albums. I listened to them as separate albums. I heard All Things Must Pass years before I heard Apple Jam, so I consider them to be separate albums. And it's my rules. So there. But All Things Must Pass, S tier. It's just is. Nothing more to say, is there? As for Apple Jam, I still really like it. It's not quite S tier. I'm gonna give it an A. I'm gonna give it an A tier. Some really good, like, it's my favourite kind of music, really, where it's just a band jamming on like one idea for an extended period. That's just some of the music that I really like, and so it's only natural that I really love that album. Then Dark Horse, George Harrison again. This is going to be the first of, I suspect, many controversial opinions in this video. Oh yes. Oh yes. I prefer it. I prefer it to All Things Must Pass. What are you going to do? You're going to stop watching the video? Probably. That's what most people do. Back to the egg. Wings. Now, this is where we first start encountering some of the problems that we're going to see in this video, is because some of these albums I've only heard once. Back to the Egg isn't one of those. I've heard it a couple of times, but it's like, it's not the most memorable. That's the problem. It's not the most memorable. The song, of which name I can't even remember. There's a song on there, I think it's the opening track, that I really like, but it's the only really memorable song on there, and it's not even memorable enough for me to remember the name. What is the bloody song called? Getting Closer. Getting Closer is a really great song, but nothing else on there is really that memorable. For me personally, so I'm gonna put it in C. Band on the Run. Now again, another very controversial opinion that I'm going to have here. I am really not all that keen on Band on the Run. I love Let Me Roll It, and I love Helen Wheels, but Helen Wheels isn't even on every version of the album. Like, I have it on vinyl. Helen Wheels isn't on it because I have the first UK pressing and it didn't have Helen Wheels on it. But even then, it just doesn't really grip me, to be honest. Apart from those two songs, like, you know, all the like Band on the Run and Jet, which everyone loves. I'm just Jet. I mean, it's kind of but Band on the Run, just it's got that kind of multi-part thing where it's like I like bits of it, but then there are other bits of it that I don't like all that much. So I'm gonna put it just above. I prefer it to Back to the Egg, but yeah, I'm putting it there. What's you gonna do? You're gonna stop watching the video? Can you do it now before you waste any more of our time? Thank you. London Town, Wings again. I like it. I like quite a few songs on it. With a Little Luck is on it. I'm going purely by memory here as well, just so you all know. I'd probably rank things slightly differently if I was looking them up, but I'm not. I'm just going purely from memory. I've Had Enough. That's another one that I really like on that album, but for from those songs that I can remember, I don't like quite as much as the ones on Band on the Run, but I think I prefer it to Back to the Egg. Wings Over America, a fantastic live album. I am going to put it in A. Do I like it more than Apple Jam? No, I don't think I do. But I still love it. It's still a brilliant album, of course. If you're wondering why I'm a bit quiet, it's because it's quite late and some other people are in bed, so I'm trying not to be too loud. I just really want to get this video done. Because it's one that I've been wanting to do for weeks, so I'm just finally getting around to doing it. John Lennon, Rock and Roll. A lot of people don't... I mean, John Lennon is my favourite Beatle. And so I love literally... And actually, he's the only... As of right now, as of making this video, he's the only person who I own every single studio album on vinyl. Every single studio album he ever made, aside from the 3 experimental ones, which are debatable when they count studio albums because they were all sort of homemade. 2 were recorded at their home. Well, 1 was recorded at home, 1 was recorded in the hospital, and the other 1 was recorded in the hotel. So are they studio albums? You know. But from Plastic Ono Band to Milk and Honey, I own every John Lennon album on vinyl, and he's the only person where I own every album on vinyl, so that's a pretty big deal. Rock and Roll is one of those albums, and I do really, really love it. Is it A? Is it B? I think it's A. I do. Now, we get to the first Beatles, plural Beatles album of the video. It goes in D. I don't like it. With the Beatles. Great album cover, one of the best Beatles album covers, but it's not one that I'm really fond of. For whatever reason, I like some songs on it. All My Loving, I believe, is on there. But it really doesn't grip me. I do own it on vinyl, but that's because I found a really, really, really cheap copy of it, so I thought I'd better pick it up while I can, but I still really, really like it. So yeah, it's going there for now. John Lennon live in New York City. Don't know if you can tell, but that is in fact a live album. That is good. Now, this is one of these things... I can't remember if I've actually listened to the album or not, but I've seen the documentary film, so that kind of counts, and it's the same. You can see Concert for Bangladesh, it's the same with that. I haven't actually heard the album, I've just seen the documentary, but assuming they're about the same, assuming the documentary is a good view of the album and vice versa, that's, Live in New York City, I like it, but how often am I gonna choose to listen to it? I mean, it's not even on my phone at the moment. I really ought to add it. Same with Concert for Bangladesh, I really ought to add them to my phone, but I haven't as of the moment. B, I think. It's far from my favourite John Lennon live experience, we'll say. But it's still good. I mean, all these are good, really, aren't they? But, yeah. The Beatles, Let It Be. And also, Live from New York City, I really should... This should be the point where I mentioned I also like Yoko, and obviously some of her songs are on that and in the show, or vice versa. Again, they're in the show. Again, I haven't heard the album. Her songs might not even be on the album, but I like her songs as well. And we'll get to her later on in this video. As you can see, we've got some stuff with her, so we'll get to that. The Beatles, Let It Be. It's one of those albums where you can tell, even without knowing the behind-the-scenes aspect of it, you can tell it was kind of thrown together a little bit. But it's still really good. It's still a bloody good album. It'd be better if it had Don't Let Me Down on it. But even without that, it's still a really, really good album. I'm just thinking where to put it. Would I rather listen to Let It Be or Wings Over America? I think Let It Be. Would I rather listen to Let It Be or Apple Jam? I think I'm going to stick with Apple Jam. I think I'm going to go with this. I like this. I like how this is looking. I like how this is going so far. Paul McCartney's debut album. Paul McCartney. I get a very similar feel to it that I get from Let It Be, where it's kind of just bits and pieces thrown together, but again, I like it. I don't like it as much as Let It Be. But I still really like it. Would I rather listen to it than Wings? I think I'd rather listen to Wings Over America, but I think I'd rather listen to McCartney than Rock and Roll. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with that. Ram, Paul McCartney, most people's favourite Paul McCartney album. Not mine. I love it. It is, of course, a fantastic album. But where... this is actually really difficult. Because at the same time I'm trying to think ahead. I know I shouldn't. I shouldn't think ahead. I'm just gonna move it around to a few places and see what feels right. That's not right. That doesn't feel right. This is starting to feel about right. Ram or McCartney. This is definitely not right. It's a toss-up between these two. I think Ram just edges out above McCartney, but I still prefer Wings Over America to Ram. Wildlife, most people's least favourite, or some people's least favourite McCartney album. I really, really like it. Again, these are all kind of going to be in a similar kind of position. That feels about right, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I'll go with that. I like that. Because it is a really good album, Wildlife. And I love the album cover as well. I really love it. It's one of my favourite of Paul's album covers. In fact, it's one of my favourite album covers ever. I really love the Wildlife album cover. Rubber Soul by the Beatles is, of course, S. Of course, it's S tier. But still, for me personally, below All Things Must Pass. I'm Looking Through You is my favourite song on the album, by the way, just for anyone wondering. It was in the film Ghost Town with Ricky Gervais, so that's probably my first time hearing it. I'm sorry. McCartney 2, my favourite Paul McCartney album, and as of this point in the video, my favourite album. Just almost every song on the album is the best. Almost. There's a couple of like the more instrumentally things towards the end that I'm not so keen on. But most of the stuff on that album is fantastic. My favourite song is One of These Days, which is the final track. And that's might be my favourite Paul McCartney song of all time. I love it. But Coming Up, Temporary Secretary, Bogey Music, Onwards. That's not the name of the song. I'm just saying, most of the songs on there. There's another really sort of bluesy one, the name of which eludes me for the moment. But I really love that one as well. So that's so far that's number one. Now we get to Unfinished Music Volume 1, Two Virgins. Now the thing is, for those who are unaware, I am a creator of experimental music myself, so I have a much greater appreciation for experimental music than other people. Having said that, it's not a great album. It's more interesting than enjoyable. I have listened to it a couple of times, and I think if you are a really big Lennon fan, and especially if you don't hate Yoko, if you hate Yoko, then why bother? But if you are appreciative of some of Yoko's more proper quote unquote music, you would do yourself a disservice by not listening to the three experimental albums that they did together. But I think it's the least interesting of the three, personally. And of course, keeping in mind, and you're going to need a very open mind for some of the stuff later, some of the decisions I'm going to make. This is not necessarily which album is better than which. This is something Larry always mentions in his videos. It's not about what's better than what. It's about what I personally would rather listen to first. Having said that, this still goes last so far. I do not like With the Beatles, but I would still rather listen to With the Beatles than Two Virgins. Okay. Now on to George Harrison's Living in the Material World. This one took me a couple of listens to get into, and I still am not crazy about it. There's a couple of songs on it I really love. I love the title track, and there's another song on there. I'm gonna have to go back to Goggle. What's the other track I love? I love the title track and Don't Let Me Wait Too Long. And of course, Give Me Love, Don't Let Me Wait Too Long, Living in the Material World, The Lord Loves the One That Loves the Lord. And I think but all like the other tracks I'm just not so keen on, but those Those 4 I really like, but the rest less. So overall, I'm not so keen on it. I'm gonna put it there. I'm gonna put it behind Live in New York City, but ahead of Band on the Run. Then John and Yoko, Double Fantasy. Of the 2 albums that they're kind of connected in a way, I prefer Milk and Honey to Double Fantasy. I think both John's songs and Yoko's songs are better on that album than they are on Double Fantasy. But Double Fantasy is still a really good album. I'm gonna put it in between these 2. I'm being a lot harsher than I thought. I thought we were going to have S filled up already, but maybe I'll have to do a bit of shift. Is that cheating to shift stuff around? It's cheating, really, isn't it? Now we get to an album I've only ever heard once. Extra Texture, George Harrison. Only heard it once. I love the song You. But that's the only song I've revisited from the album. I cannot remember a single other song from the album. I'm going to put it right next to the other album that I can only remember one song from, Back to the Egg. And the one song that I can remember from that, Getting Closer. I've forgotten the name of the song again. Getting Closer, I prefer to You, so I'm going to put them that way around. George Harrison's Electronic Sound. Believe it or not, I have listened to this album twice, and I actually quite like it. I even painted a painting, sort of based on it, which is not hanging in my room anymore, so I can't show it to you. I used to have a painting hanging in my room based on this album. I might put it up on screen. If I remember, I'll put up the painting I did on screen now. It's called Electronic Sound. It's just named after the album. But I've listened to it a couple of times. I like it. To be honest with you. As for where it's going to go... Honestly, if you ask me now, would I rather listen to Electronic Sound or Extra Texture? Electronic Sound. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel about it. What can one say? I've got a bunch of phlegm collecting, I just need to do something about it. Revolver by the Beatles, in case you weren't aware. That goes to the top. It's not my favourite Beatles album, but it is one of the 3. Well, I think it's my 3rd. It switches back and forth between being my 2nd and 3rd favourite. I'll go more into detail about what number 2 is when we get to it, and you'll understand why they kind of flip-flop back and forth a little bit. Wedding album. This is the 3rd of John and Yoko's experimental trilogy. This one is much more interesting, whereas the first album is just... it's just them sort of just making noises. Like, it's them in the studio and they have tape loops going and they just bang on the odd instrument, and it's really interesting. And I'm not being sarcastic or anything like that. It genuinely is interesting. I've enjoyed listening to every album on this list to some extent. And to some extent, this is more interesting than even the Beatles. I mean, I was debating when I was putting it there, but I thought if I did that, people would actually hang me. And I will probably revisit with the Beatles before this. But absolutely, I will be revisiting the Wedding album before possibly even Electronic Sound and Extra Texture. I mean, the Wedding album, the first half is John and Yoko doing this live performance where it's just Yoko doing her thing and John doing some guitar feedback, and that's quite difficult to get through. But side 2, and this is This is assuming I'm even right. I could be wrong about the track listing. I am wrong about the track listing. The one I was thinking of is on the second experimental album. John and Yoko is the one on this. That actually might just be just as difficult to get through, actually, because it's just them saying each other's names, so I'm going to actually leave it where it is. But the point is, the second side of this album is like snippets of when they were in Amsterdam. It's called Amsterdam, as you saw just then when I looked at the track listing. It's got snippets of interviews and snippets of song fragments and stuff like that, and that's really, really interesting. I really like that. So I am happy with that being placed there, ahead of Electronic Sound, but before the Wings stuff. The mediocre Wings. None of these albums are mediocre. Nothing here is mediocre. Next is George Harrison's 33 1/3. This was marginally better than Extra Texture. Again, I've only heard the full album once, but the one song that I knew from it already was it's not your song, this song. Your song is Elton John. This song, which is the one that he did about his copyright thing, it has Eric Idle in it. He does a little bit of a voice part in that song. I might actually prefer You as an individual song to that one, but I just remember when I listened to the album that I enjoyed it more than Extra Texture. I couldn't name a single other song from it, but I know I enjoyed it more than Extra Texture. But honestly, I'd still rather revisit Electronic Sound before I got to that. And now the White Album, which not only is it my favourite Beatles album, but people who know me will know the White Album is my favourite album. Literally my favourite album. So that is not moving now. That is staying rock steady there. Now, Wings, Red Rose Speedway. Not my favourite Paul McCartney album, as I said, that is McCartney 2. But it is my favourite Wings album. And I do prefer it to Ram. I think it's going in S tier. Will people kill me if I put it ahead of Rubber Soul? They might. We'll find out, won't we? Because that is what I'm doing. It's still behind All Things Must Pass, but I think overall I prefer it to Rubber Soul. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Nothing. I know it feels like I'm being sarcastic and that this is a rage bait video, but I swear it's not. These are my genuine opinions. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I think it is the most overrated Beatles album. That is not to say it's bad. It's not bad. It's very good. But it's certainly, of the latter half of the Beatles, from all the Beatles albums from Rubber Soul onwards, Sgt. Pepper's is my least favourite. Which kind of forces it to go in here, doesn't it? Because I put Let It Be in here. So it's going to have to go there. As far as Wings Over America, yeah, I definitely prefer it to Wings. Getting Better, Lovely Rita, the title track and the reprise, Little Help From My Friends. It is a great album, but it's brought down by some of the others. It's, you know, Fixing a Hole, When I'm 64, whichever George's Indian one. I can't remember if it's Within You Without You or if that's on Revolver. I think it's Within You Without You is on Sgt. Pepper's, and those. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's very late. It's just gone 11 p.m. So I'm very tired. And I've been up a long time as well today. But yeah, so I'm gonna put it there personally. I would rather listen to it than these, but I would not. I would rather listen to Let It Be more. John Lennon, Plastic on the Band. It's definitely S, but where in S? Around there. Maybe even there. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. Revolver, what's Revolver got? A lot. But I'm thinking Revolver there's like the odd track that I am not so keen on. Again, there's another one of the sort of Indian-y influenced tracks that I'm not that into. Whereas Plastic Ono Band, there's not a single track on that album that I don't like. I love every song on that album. So I guess that means it goes there. I mean, that doesn't even go for the White Album. Like, if it's just purely on a percentage of what songs I like, then the White Album wouldn't be up there. But of course, that's kind of the point for the White Album. If you judge the White Album, it's like these people who say the White Album would be so much better if it was only one disc, and it's like, well, clearly you don't understand the point of the album. If the White Album was only one disc, it wouldn't be the White Album. It'd be something else. It'd be good, but the whole point of the White Album is that it's eclectic, is that there's this wide range of stuff going on. So you can't really judge it by the same criteria that you can other albums. It also needs another category of its own, to be honest. But yeah, as far as Plastic Ono Band, what I'm trying to do is, if I had them both in front of me, which one would I want to listen to first? And obviously it depends what kind of mood I'm in. There are going to be times where I don't want to listen to the White Album and I'd rather listen to, rock and roll or something. But it overall, I think I'd rather reach for Plastic Ono Band before Revolver, so I'm going to go with that. Speaking of the Plastic Ono Band, we have the Plastic Ono Band. Their only actual release under that name, most of their other releases were under either John Lennon or Yoko Ono. But this is the only release by the Plastic Ono Band, live in Toronto, or live piece in Toronto 1969. It was for the Rock and Roll Revival Festival. I've seen the documentary for that as well. I have heard the actual album. I've listened to the album more than the film. I've only seen the film once. And it's got some really, really crap performances by the old rock and roll stars. Like, you got Chuck Berry in it, and a couple of others, and they're all really crap. Especially compared to when John Lennon comes out. It just, I mean, I like some Chuck Berry stuff, but he's just, I don't know what drugs he was on in that show, but he was so sloppy, and he hit the wrong notes sometimes. I mean, it was really quite pathetic. But I really love this album. It's sort of a really sort of rough, raw kind of rock and roll compared to a lot of like the rock and roll that they were doing in the Beatles, for example, in like the early Beatle years, that rock and roll. It was very clean and precise, whereas the Plastic Ono Band's version of rock and roll is really sort of sloppy. That's helped by the fact that they'd never played together before. The band got together the day of this concert. They rehearsed on the plane over, just with their instruments unplugged. So obviously that doesn't include the drummer and stuff like that. That's just the bass, Klaus Vormann, and the guitarists and stuff, just playing unplugged. And the first time they played together, plugged in, was the recording that you hear on the album. So it is very sort of, you could tell that it's not quite, But I love that about it. It gives it a really unique energy that I really love, and I am gonna put it. Again, people are gonna shoot me. People are gonna shoot me. But screw it, I'm putting it there. I debated for a split second doing that. I really, genuinely, these two albums are that close to me. But I thought I do want to live a little bit longer, so I'm going to do that. And to be fair, that is genuinely, this is my opinion. But if I saw someone else have their tier list and they put it like that, like I wouldn't be like, what? I wouldn't be like, what are you insane? I'd be like, yeah, that's fair enough. But I do prefer Revolver just a little bit. But especially when, I mean, there's not a single, aside from the fact that John Lennon is on both of the albums, and of course Klaus Vormann, and I hadn't even thought about this actually, but these three albums being next to each other, he plays bass on that, he plays bass on that, and he designed the album cover for that. So it kind of, and Klaus Vormann is my favourite bass player, by the way, just so you're all aware, he's my favourite bass player of all time. So there. And he's on some of George's stuff as well, I recall. I couldn't tell you what exactly ones he's on, but I think he's on All Things Must Pass. But anyway, this is my opinion. I genuinely like the Plastic Ono Band album that much. And that includes Yoko's stuff. I prefer Don't Worry Kyoko to that other, what's the other track? Is it John Let's Hope for Peace, where it's just, again, it's kind of the same thing that they do on that performance I was talking about earlier, which is on this album, where it's like, it's just feedback with Yoko doing her thing. But the stuff they do on this, even though it's pretty much the same thing, I think it's done better on this, and I also think it's shorter. It lasts an entire side on this album, where it's only about half a side on this, so it's shorter and it's more interesting. And she does do a proper song previous to it, which, Don't Worry Kyoko. There is another performance of that song on another one of the albums here that we haven't got to yet, which I prefer massively to the performance of it on this album, and that goes for Cold Turkey as well. They performed that on this album, and I prefer it the way they do it on a later album. But Give Peace a Chance, the Give Peace a Chance that they do on this album is my favourite version of the song. Like, I almost never listen to the original version that they recorded in the hotel room. Whenever I listen to Give Peace a Chance, which I think is the most important song ever written by a human, I don't listen to the hotel room version. I listen to the electric version that they did on this album. I love it. And all the rock and roll, the classic rock and roll stuff, like Dizzy Miss Lizzy and Money, That's What I Want, and Blue Suede Shoes, they're all done so well on this album. I love them. I mean, again, it's got that rough, unrehearsed, because that's what it was unrehearsed, but it's still, I really love it. I love this album so much. I also am quite fond of Imagine by John Lennon. It's definitely S tier. It's above Rubber Soul. I'm just thinking, Imagine or Red Rose Speedway. It genuinely is that close for me. I love both so much. Imagine is definitely behind All Things Must Pass for me personally. Imagine or Red Rose Speedway. I think Imagine just edges it, but only just. I mean, I love Red Rose Speedway, but I think Imagine just, with things like, obviously the title track, but also things like I Don't Want to Be a Soldier, How Do You Sleep, stuff like that. I think it just edges it. What's the other one? Give Me Some Truth. There's just, I think Imagine just edges it, but I still prefer All Things Must Pass. Now, George Harrison's debut and the first solo album by any Beatle, which is quite significant. It's not very good. Quite honestly, I would rather listen to John and Yoko's Two Virgins over that. It's just like there's good stuff on it, but it's surrounded by so much rubbish. That it's got the album cover is much better than the music that's on it. I never even mentioned the album cover for this album. That's an interesting choice, isn't it? Them posing with their floppies out, their various floppies. They have different, man and woman. They have different kinds of floppies, but they're all floppy. Yeah, certainly. Again, I respect it. I don't want to look at it. I respect John Lennon. I respect the bravery of getting his bits out on an album. I don't want to see it. Okay? And the same with Yoko. I don't want to see those. The Beatles' debut album, Please Please Me. I prefer it massively to With the Beatles, because With the Beatles it only has one song on it that I like, or maybe like two. Please Please Me has about three songs on it that I like. I like the opener and the closer. I Saw Her Standing There and Twist and Shout. Twist and Shout is the best early Beatles song. I like Do You Want to Know a Secret? I'm gonna put it but then all the other stuff brings it down. All the slow stuff brings it down. So I'm going to put it behind Band on the Run, but ahead of London Town. I think that's fair. Abbey Road. Now, this is the one that I was talking about earlier, which goes along with Revolver, and they kind of swap places as to which one was my favourite. Before I owned any on vinyl, Revolver was my second favourite Beatles album after The White Album. The White Album's always been my favourite. But then it was Revolver, and then it was Abbey Road. But the thing is, I own the White Album on vinyl, and I own Abbey Road on vinyl, but I do not own the Revolver on vinyl. And the act of listening to an album, a physical vinyl record album, it makes the music sound better. And so as I have Abbey Road, but I do not have Revolver, that pushes Abbey Road ahead. When I get Revolver on vinyl, they might swap back, but until then, Abbey Road is going ahead of Revolver. I still prefer Plastic Ono Band to Abbey Road. Do I? I don't know, I'm just thinking. Again, I'm trying to think, this is not necessarily to do with the individual songs, this is to do with the overall album experience. Because I know there's on Abbey Road, because I'm not so keen on, I like every song on side one, and I like every song in the medley. No, I don't. No, Sun King. Those are the two. It's Because and Sun King are the two songs that I'm not so keen on Abbey Road. But as an overall experience, it might... I'm just trying to do what feels right here. I still think Plastic Ono Band is ahead, I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. Now, Men Love Avenue, John Lennon. This is a compilation album that Yoko released, I think, in 1986. The first side is some pretty good stuff. It's like outtakes from the Mind Games, Walls and Bridges, and Rock and Roll sessions. And I love those three albums. And so those are really good. But then the second half is just alternate takes of Walls and Bridges songs, and they're all inferior to the takes that are on that album. So it goes like, if it was just the first half, it'd probably go in A, but the second half really sort of brings it down. So I'm gonna put it in B. There, yeah. So again, ahead of Band on the Run. That, again, people are not going to be happy, but that's just how I feel. But behind Living in the Material World. I didn't expect this video. We've gone 45 minutes. I did not expect it to last this long. There are only 43 albums here. Larry's videos, he ranks 50 albums in like 20 minutes. But I guess he just doesn't go into the detail that I am. Maybe he thinks less than I do as well. That was an insult. I didn't mean it like that. Venus and Mars. Of all these albums, this was the first one I got on vinyl. It wasn't the first album, it was the second album that I got on vinyl. Public Image Limited's Metal Box was the first album I ever got on vinyl, but I got them on the same day. But I picked up Metal Box and took it to the counter first, and then Venus and Mars, but I still, both great albums, by the way. Venus and Mars. I love this album. It was, for a while, it was my favourite Paul McCartney album. I think that was before I'd heard McCartney 2. But I definitely had heard Red Rose Speedway, but more recently Red Rose Speedway has pushed forward, but I still think it's S tier, easily. And I am going to put it ahead of Rubber Soul, but behind Red Rose Speedway. But I love Venus and Mars. It's such a good album. The title track and the reprise, Rock Show, Medicine Jar, Listen to What the Man Says. There's so many great songs on that album, and more besides the ones I mentioned there. I love that album so much, and one of the best album covers ever. That photograph was taken by Linda. La la la, lovely Linda. But yeah, that's just, I love that album. John Lennon, Mind Games, my favourite John Lennon album, which gives you a pretty good idea as to where it's gonna go. Ding dong, right there. A lot of people hate the original mix. I love the original mix. I listened to the first 2 tracks of Sean's, and as much as I respect Sean for keeping his dad's memory alive, I respect him tremendously. He's not a producer, though. I listened to I got through the first 2 tracks of his remix of the album that came out a couple of years ago. It's awful. There's no bass. I believe he removed the saxophone solo from one of the songs. I didn't get to that song, but I heard from people that he removed a saxophone solo from a song. Never remove a saxophone. If anything, add a saxophone solo. Never remove a saxophone solo. That's like removing the guitar solo from While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But Mind Games, I love the original mix so much. I have the first edition on vinyl, or the first UK pressing. I think it came out in America a little bit before. But I've got the first UK pressing of that album, and it sounds great. I love it. And there we are. Then, Sometime in New York City. Now, of course, this is kind of 2 albums. The studio half and the live half. I love both. I love the live half even more. When I was talking about Cold Turkey and Don't Worry Kyoko that are on the Live Peace in Toronto album, they're both on this album. They're both stretched out to really long. Cold Turkey is about 8 minutes, and Don't Worry Kyoko is, I think it's about... How long is it? Is it about 18 minutes or something like that? I think they're great. I love those. There's the studio half is the disc 1, and there's some great songs on that. I love that. But then the live half, the first half, so side 3 of the overall album, is the Plastic Ono Band, which consisted of John and Yoko and George Harrison and Klaus Vormann and Eric Clapton and Billy Preston and Ringo and Alan White and a bunch of others, playing for a UNICEF concert, which had a great title. If you go and look up what that concert was called, it's amusing. And then the side 4 was them playing in 1971 with Frank Zappa. So it was John, Yoko, and then Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. I am less keen on that side to the 1969 live material. It's still really, really good, and they did a song called Well, Baby Please Don't Go, or something along those lines, which I really love. Zappa has a really great guitar solo in it. Yoko does a screaming, but it's kind of in the background, and it works in the song, in my opinion. And there's some other good stuff that they do, but really the best stuff on that album is the 1969 live material. They just do this jam. It's like the thing that I mentioned with Apple Jam, in that it's some of my favourite kind of music is when the band is just jamming, like there's just like a single idea that they're jamming on for ages. It's one of my favourite things in music, and that in particular is it. It is absolutely S tier. It is above Live Piece in Toronto. Would I be executed if I put it above Revolver? Maybe, but I'm doing it. It's not... Again, I'm trying to think, what would I rather pick up? If I had them in front of me, what would I pick up first? Right now, and again, this is, if I did this tomorrow, the answers would be different, but right now, for the 12th of August, 2026, which is the day I'm recording this, it's probably going to go up tomorrow. As far as the 12th, well, it's half an hour until tomorrow. It's 11:28 at the moment, so this is definitely going to be going up at least tomorrow. As of the 12th of August, 2026, I would rather listen to Sometime in New York City than Abbey Road. I'm sorry, I love it. Abbey Road is one of the greatest albums of all time. All these albums are some of the great, everything in S tier and A tier, everything in S and A are some of the greatest albums, are the greatest albums of all time. But at the moment, I prefer this to Abbey Road. I'm sorry. Or it's not even, again, it's not that I prefer it. Abbey Road is a better album 100%, if you're just going by technicality and iconic songs, but at the moment, I would rather listen to Sometime in New York City than Abbey Road. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Now on to Walls and Bridges, another Lennon. It's above Rubber Soul, and I think it's above Vincent Mars. I don't say that easily, but it's just a couple of days ago, there was a poll on one of these Beatles-related YouTube channels, what's the better album, and it was Walls and Bridges versus Venus and Mars. And the only reason I can make this decision so quickly right now, that Walls and Bridges is better than Venus and Mars, is because I sat at that poll for about 10 minutes, debating it in my head which album I preferred. It was so close. It's the hardest decision I've ever had to make on one of those polls, which album I prefer, because I love them both equally, but you have to have put one above. You can't have them both equal. You have to pick one, and if I absolutely have to pick one that's better than the other, I think Walls and Bridges just edges by. But you know, that's how it goes. I still prefer Red Rose Speedway to Walls and Bridges though. Then we have Le Concert for Le Bangladesh. Now again, I haven't actually listened to the album, but I have seen the documentary 2 or 3 times now, and it's a brilliant documentary. It's S tier, absolutely. It helps that obviously it's not just George Harrison. Obviously you've got Bob Dylan in it, and you've got a bunch of other people in it, Billy Preston, you've got loads of people on it. maybe there. This is a difficult one. Rubber Soul. Again, Rubber Soul is just weighed down so much by some of, like, Michelle, which everyone else loves, but it's one of my least favourite Beatles songs. Is there a song that I dislike as much as Michelle on Concert for Bangladesh? I'm not sure there is. And what's the Heights? The Heights, I'm Looking Through You. What's the best song on Concert for Bangladesh? Maybe Just Like a Woman. They do a performance of that, which is, I've heard the Bob Dylan's original version of that song on Blonde on Blonde. I prefer the version that they do on this album. Yeah, I'm going with that. I'm sorry. I prefer Concert for Bangladesh to Rubber Soul. I'm sorry. Rubber Soul is still, keep in mind, it's still S tier. It's still S tier. But there. Right, now we have Unfinished Music Volume 2, Life with the Lions. I am going to put it in between the Wedding album and Electronic Sound. I would rather listen to the Wedding album than... Because again, the side one of both of these are pretty difficult to get through. Side one of the Wedding album is just John and Yoko saying each other's names, and side one of Life with the Lions is Yoko doing her thing, with John doing some guitar feedback underneath it. But side two of both albums for me are really interesting, but I'm just... And side two of this, it's got some really interesting stuff on it. But I think overall the stuff on side two of the Wedding album is more interesting than the stuff on side two of Life with the Lions. But yeah. But again, I think I'd rather listen to that than Electronic Sound, I think. As much as I like Electronic Sound, don't get me wrong. But yeah, definitely there. And these two are definitely better than the old Blummin', what's it called? Two Virgins. Then we get to George Harrison's 1979 solo album. Again, I've only heard it once. Again, there's only really one song on it that I like, Here Comes the Moon. And again, I'm thinking Here Comes the Moon versus You versus this song. Again, but again, like I think I prefer You to this song, but I overall I preferred that album to that one. But I do recall really, really not caring for that album, whereas I think overall I enjoyed 33 and a Third more than Extra Texture. With the self-titled George Harrison album, I just didn't like it. I like Here Comes the Moon, but every other song, again, maybe I was just in the wrong mood when listening, because people love that album. A lot of people say that that's the second best George Harrison album after All Things Must Pass. A lot of people say that. I just don't like it. I didn't like it I didn't like it that time. Maybe, like I said, maybe I was just in the wrong mood. I'm going to have to listen to it again in the future. A lot of these opinions, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, obviously a couple of years ago I wouldn't have heard a few of these albums. But the ones that I would have heard, I'd have put in different positions. There would have been a time where Venus and Mars was above Red Rose Speedway. There'd have been a time where Revolver was above Abbey Road. There'd have been a time where, where things were in different positions. And if you ask me in another couple of years, things will have shifted around. I'll have re-listened to some of these Harrison albums multiple times and gotten things more worked out. But for now, that's where it's going. Now, Milk and Honey, I'm going to leave that to last because that'll be more interesting. I've just spattered right. Wings at the Speed of Sound. There's some really good stuff on that album. Let Them In, or Let 'Em In, I should say. It's called Let 'Em In. She's My Baby is one of my favourite Paul McCartney songs ever. It's really, I mean, it's not a masterpiece lyrically. It's basically just like 2 lines repeated over and over again, but it's so groovy. It's almost disco. I really love it. But then there's other stuff on it that lets it down a little bit more. I think it's in B. I'm gonna put it above Men Love Avenue, but before Living in the Material World. And now, the final album of the video. We've just passed an hour recording. I'm probably gonna do a bit of editing down, so it might not be quite that long for you. But Milk and Honey, John and Yoko. As I said before, I prefer it to Double Fantasy, and I prefer it to Double Fantasy a whole lot. I'm putting it in S. Where in S? Pretty high. I think. How does that feel? Okay, let's put it where obviously it's too high, and we'll just move it back one at a time and see when it starts feeling right. Milk and Honey, McCartney 2. Yeah, I think I got it right. I think I got it right when I had it there. Will you move, Dark Horse? There, I think that's that. Because the thing about Milk and Honey, with Double Fantasy, there's a couple of songs that I mean, again, I like every song on it, but I mean, it's like, I like every song on it. With Milk and Honey, I love every song on it. With the exception, there's one of John's called something about like My Little Flower Princess or something along those lines, which I really don't like. But every other song on that album I love. All of John's songs on the album, all of Yoko's songs on the album, I love. I love Milk and Honey. So that is that. Let's do a count. Now, I predicted that there was going to be 20 albums in S tier. Now I can tell already that that's not quite right, but I think I was pretty close. Let's see this. 8, 16, 17. So I was only 3 off. 17 albums in S. 8 albums in A tier, 5 in B, 10 in C, and 3 in D. And it's bookended very nicely by 1968 as well. 68 albums at both ends. And that one. But yeah, just a quick overview. Is there anything in here I'd like to change? I've slaved over it enough, I think. I'm pretty happy with how everything is there. Yeah, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I know most of you aren't, but that's why it's my list and not yours. Yeah, there we are. That is every Beatles and solo Beatle album that I've heard. A very important distinction there. That I've heard. I haven't heard all of them. That I've heard. Ranked. I've really enjoyed this. I don't know what else to say. I really, really have enjoyed making this video. I hope to make several more of these. I've got a few ideas, and I'm thinking maybe one a month, just to keep this channel alive a little bit, because I've got a couple more ideas of what I can do for this kind of thing. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. Please tell me how you would rank these albums in the comments. Tell me how much you hate me. Send me all the death threats that you're going to for even daring to say the name Yoko, let alone put her above some of these classic albums that you love. And if Yoko's solo albums were in here, several of them would be up here in S as well, so you can be doubly angry. Like her Plasticona Band would be up in S. The first disc of Fly would be in S. I hate the second disc, but the first disc of Fly would be in S. Feeling the Space would be in S. That's probably it, I think. Approximately Infinite Universe, I think, is just like, it's like, a lot of people really love that one, or at least a lot of Yoko people really love that one, but I prefer Feeling the Space to Approximately Infinite Universe is just like one long thing for me. Like it's like it all sounds the same to me. I need to listen to it again really to properly get it, but Feeling the Space is more diverse. Anyway, this isn't about Yoko, not entirely. Anyway, that is that. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Share your thoughts on my list in the description. Put your own ranking of these albums in the description. Be as polite or rude as you want, I don't mind. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. Good night.